our guest, David Gonzalez. David owns the Domestic Placement Network and EstateJobs.com, as well as serving on DEMA's National Advisory Panel. With his finger on the pulse of the industry, David has offered to share his insight and provide relevant, timely information on maximizing your agency experience. By the way, David is not shy. He's even authored a book on the subject. So ask him anything that you want and just make sure you put it into the chat box. At this point, David, let me go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, can everybody hear me? I'm unmuted. I should be on video, and there is no screen share, so anyone joining, again, on a call, you're not missing anything visually. You can take notes if you'd like. I'm gonna hit a lot of quick points. We don't have a lot of time, but I'd like to give you some of the stuff that I've been working on that is completely of service to job seekers and private service career professionals. I really like the version of me that Matt introduced. Seems like an interesting guy. It's not really me. And I say that because everything that we do as service providers in any industry should be looked at completely as a performance. If you don't feel that as a service professional that you are a performer, you are completely missing the point. Okay, nobody does this just because they love it. Nobody does this out of the goodness of their heart, as long as they're being paid as a career professional. So you have to keep that relationship in mind, no matter what we're talking about, as you go through your private service career. That said, I'll give you a quick story. When I was first working as a personal assistant, one of the coolest things I ever got to do was go to a Van Halen concert back in the 90s, late 90s, so Sammy Hagar days. And the seats that we had actually were not seats. I walked onto the stage, on stage left, just behind the curtain with some friends of ours that were clients, and they were friends with the sound and light manager who was sitting just off stage left, and he showed us the CD that he put into a machine to start the concert. And we were like, what is that? What do you mean you're putting in a CD? And the great reveal to us was that the entire show was backtracked by a pre-recorded disc that synchronized the backing sounds and fill-in music and the lights, and the performance was layered on top of all of that. And it was just as magical to watch that show, even knowing the behind the scenes was being run by something that was so pre-planned and so formatted that it wasn't spontaneous at all. But what I learned from that is, just like we do as service professionals, everything is about preparation, rehearsal, and performance. So just keep that filter in mind when you're thinking about being a great private service employee. So let me get into this because we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to hit as many quick tips as I can. There will be a moment to ask some questions, so feel free to ask anything if you missed something, if I didn't explain something clearly. And after the event, there should be a download available. I released the second version of my book in 2013, and you all get to have a PDF of it for free, the entire book. So a lot of the stuff that I'm covering, I've already written about. You'll have that guide. It's really cool on the PDF because you can flip through the chapters and different topics just with the click of a button. So enjoy that afterward if you want to get some good fill-in information. So a lot of you are searching for jobs. How do you become one of the best candidates? I'm going to start by disappointing most of you, because the answer to how do I get a job in private service is that there absolutely is no answer. All we can do is discuss how can you have the best chance at being the top professional that gets hired when an opportunity presents itself. So what you want to focus on is some general advice throughout all of your career that applies to really any career, but especially for private service. Number one, you should be constantly asking yourself, who am I as a private service professional? And even more importantly, you should be asking yourself constantly and measuring against the statement, what am I becoming? What that does is it puts you in a position to always act and always perform as if you're being reviewed for a new position. So whether you're currently working and you're going through your daily routine, you're going through your daily service job, always consider that you are performing at your best and you're being reviewed for somebody who could consider hiring you. What this does is it allows you to translate your performance and your current serviceability into sort of a living resume. One of the exercises I tell people to do when they're writing a brand new resume is I say, take 10 days of work and keep a journal and be as specific as you can. You know, I did this in the morning. I went and collected the paper. I took the dog for a walk. All of these things that you consider to be your normal basic routine, write them down. Because what you're going to find is after about 10 days, you have a book about yourself. You'll notice that you've done so many things that you've been taking it for granted and you've been doing things automatically. But you need to start translating that into a very specific outline of what it is you do. What are your service capabilities? This way, your resume becomes a living document. You are always updating and always honing down into the very specific talents. What am I and who am I as a service professional? The second piece, what am I becoming? This is a little bit more outside of your job. This is where you get into your own personal career development. What you want to be focused on is how am I staying current with the market? How am I improving any weaknesses? How am I keeping a track of my achievements? How am I setting goals for higher level achievements in service? And how am I staying engaged in the learning process? Am I reading a new book about service? Am I reading a book about management? Am I taking courses outside of my job that might enhance my abilities? One of the things, I have a note that when I was writing this, I put learning OMG. So few times do I hear someone looking for a job tell me, oh, by the way, while I've been looking for a job, I know there's a lot of hours in the day. Looking for a job is not a full-time job. There isn't 8 hours of activity I can do to find a job each day. So what I've done with my free time is I've taken a class on computers. I've taken a class on speaking in public. I've taken a class on management. I'm auditing a class at a local college. I mean, these are things that you should be thinking of as a professional in any career, but even more importantly in your service career, because things are changing so fast. The luxury market is changing so fast. Management, hospitality, get engaged, look to other professionals, but continue to learn. This is so important. When you are able to present that, it gives you a greater confidence. It makes you a better candidate. Continue learning. Second piece, always, 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 always keep your performance tangible and visible throughout all formats of media and communication. What do I mean by this? Who you are as a professional has to have a certain sort of bubble that you're in when you're presenting to a professional audience. So anytime you're speaking with agencies, anytime you're putting yourself online in a professional context, anytime you're communicating to a potential future employer, anytime you're engaged in a community like this, what you need to do is have your entire package of your image presented the way you would like to be known as a professional. Two things that are huge. Number one, always have a current resume. I don't care if you're in a job 12 years as of today, you should always have a resume. It just keeps you on track at the least, and gives you another sense of, hey, what am I accomplishing? Who am I as a professional in my job? Second thing it does is makes you ready for an opportunity. Because if somebody says, hey, by the way, you know, there's this huge job, I know you've been in yours for a long time, do you have a resume? I would love to just discuss with you whether this is a fit, or I'd love to see your resume as a professional, and what makes you a really good candidate, so that I can talk to some other people about it. There are a ton of contexts for, yeah, sure, I'll send you over a resume. And you can do it without, you know, blowing up your own job, without revealing who you're working for, and being very confidential at the same time. But always have that. It's such a good tool. In fact, one of my favorite authors in the management space and the customer service space, his name is Tom Peters. And back in the 80s, he wrote a book with a partner called In Search of Excellence. What they did there was they profiled around the world some of the greatest companies and what they were doing behind the scenes for customer service. Well, later on in Tom's career, he switched that whole idea of how do you make a company appear great and give the greatest service possible. And he wrote a book called The Brand You, as in Y-O-U, saying essentially your entire professional career, you have to promote yourself as a brand. And all of these things that I'm talking about constantly reinforce what your brand is and how your brand is presented to the public. So one of the huge things that people are missing, some do it well. I give myself maybe a 6 or 7 out of 10. LinkedIn. It's one of the most popular platforms online, and it should be entirely professional. This is where you can get in your own bubble of who you are as a professional. If you don't have a current, visually solid presentation on LinkedIn, you are minus a few points. Okay. Some people might think, oh, I'm not going to put myself online. I'm not going to do the LinkedIn thing. I'm not going to do Facebook. Well, with LinkedIn, I would suggest to you that you're losing points if you don't do it. It's not a positive move to not present yourself on there. Again, you can list all of your experience confidentially, put private employer if you need to. But if you don't have that profile in today's modern job searching and networking era, you're missing out. So take the time to learn LinkedIn. If you need help, Donna Shannon is actually one of the best private, I'm botching her name of her company. It's Personal Touch Career Services. Thank you for being patient with me, Donna. But definitely do LinkedIn, okay? Second thing, make lifestyle choices that are congruent with being a private service professional. I cannot tell you how disappointing it is to get to the middle or the end of an initial interview and then find out somebody who wants a live-in job has 7 dogs, 3 cats, 2 birds, and 18 children. I'm a big fan of families. I love pets. I have a couple of my own of both, but I'm not going to ask someone to house me as part of my employment. So this is a particular example because it does come up, but many facets of your personal life cross over into your professional life. If they interfere with your professional life, you may rethink your choice. 2 of the biggest problems are needing housing for a job that can't provide the type of housing you need. That's if you're doing a live on site or live in job. And number 2 is financial stability. I don't have a solution for everybody to be financially free. I'm not. But in the context of being able to go take a position that might be a bit of a step back for you financially, if you're already comfortable and able to live light, as we could say, where you don't need much, you can live temporarily somewhere, you're traveling light let's say. That is such a huge benefit. Number one, because you'll never have to bother the employer with your own personal circumstances. You'll never have to make your problems their problems. Second piece is you have walkaway power. One of the toughest things to do in private service is if you're in a bad situation or you don't like a job or you feel like you're compromising, staying with it just because you really, really need a job, that's a tough place to be in. So again, I don't have a solution to that, but I'm trying to give you the most ideal scenario that you can put yourself in as a private service professional. So let's jump right into talking about how to conduct yourself in the job search. Those were all career tips in general of being in the best place to move forward with a job search. This is what we want to talk about next, is agency and employer best practices. How do we conduct ourselves while we're doing the job hunt, dealing with agencies and dealing with potential employers directly? Okay, number one issue for me. You'll see it in my writing. You'll hear it within the first few minutes of talking to me about your resume. Know what you're looking for. This is a crazy simple thing. And for some people, it's the most complex thing because private service has so many variables. People have trouble articulating specifically what they're after. Objective statement is one place this happens in the written form, and then telephone or meeting someone, personal interview. I can't help you find something if I don't know what I'm looking for. So you need to articulate that. What I would suggest is practice with other people who know nothing about this industry. Tell them within 10 seconds exactly the type of job you're looking for. And without any knowledge of the business, they should be able to go, oh, I get it. You're this, and you're looking for a situation where you do that. 10 seconds. You'd be surprised how long 10 seconds is if you count down when you have a minute in your head. Second thing, follow instructions exactly. Okay, this can't be overstated. Most people don't read everything. I'm perfectly guilty of not reading terms and conditions when I sign my life away online and I just click agree, agree, agree. That's probably not smart, but it's become something that's just, again, something we take for granted. Just like, they can't be screwing me, so I'll just click agree. Well, guess what? This becomes part of the interview in many cases. I have a colleague that I was just talking to from the Northwest, and we were talking about sometimes we run ads in different spaces, even to Craigslist. And she said, one of the things I've done is I've started adding some specific instructions on how to respond at the bottom of my Craigslist ad. So if somebody doesn't do the instruction that's at the bottom, I immediately can delete their email, because what it means is they haven't even read the ad and they're just shooting me their resume. So don't do rapid fire resume responses. Read carefully. It's a lot of work to search for a job, and a lot of the stuff can be repetitive and tedious. But the good news about that is you don't have to do it all the time. Hopefully you're searching for a job, you're going through this process, put your best foot forward, put your best effort forward, and a complete effort for a short amount of time to set up something that is long-term, that has, the rest of your life, basically, it will have influence over what happens now. So be very, very careful. Follow instructions. If you have a really bad experience or somebody puts you through, all kinds of fiery hoops that you have to jump through and it leads nowhere, it can leave a bitter taste in your mouth. Just walk away politely. There's no need for you to have to react to that. Sometimes things are out of the person's control that's even putting you through a very tedious process. The key is you'll never really know the truth of what's happening on the other side of the desk. I can give you a little bit of insight, but in each particular case, just assume the best. And if you have a bad experience on your end, just walk away, be polite. You never know how that could come back to you, where you went through something difficult, it didn't pan out for you, but that person could have a positive impression. They could refer you to someone else. They could have another job in the future. Something may turn out very, very right from that. And that's the only piece that you have in your control. So just remember that. It's hard. I tend to react myself and want to kind of stick it to somebody that's put me through something like that. But it's just part of it. You have control, again, of the performance on your side and the image that you project as a service professional. Patience is a huge virtue, especially as a service provider. Second thing, be positive. Always be positive. There is absolutely no reason for you to lead into any situation, especially in an interview, where you're coming in with complaints, you're coming in with unrealistic expectations, you're coming in with assumptions like, oh, well, yeah, I assume that they're looking for just this and just that, so I just thought I would inquire and whatever. Yeah, that's just not going to get you a job. So always come in with a positive, professional attitude. Second piece of communication with agencies and employers. Everything that you do and say to promote yourself and to promote your own brand must be framed with the correct language. If I were to say to you, I'm looking for a job where I can have a great experience, I can put my professional skills to work, I can grow, I can, have respectful employers. The list goes on and on of the I's, the I need, the I want. Those aren't bad. You can have that discussion with me privately. Not too much, because once it flips over the edge to like, yeah, I'm just listening to your personal wish list, it gets annoying. But what we want to do is we want to take those statements and turn them to a positive marketing language. Again, propel your brand forward as a benefit and a value to an employer. So, new example. What I can provide is top-level service in a formal setting for an employer. I would provide the most value in a home where they often entertain formally. Okay, that's different than saying, I really need to be in a formal household. Communicates the same thing, but it's almost 100% different meaning when someone's hearing it with their filter of how can this person be of value to me? So for agencies and employers, if you can correct your language into, I would be best in an environment for an employer if, that's a really good frame of reference for you. So homework for everybody is go back into your resumes and see if you have any of the language that reads, I need and I want, and turn it into, here's what I have to offer as value to an employer. It's simple. Consider yourself a brand. Consider yourself a professional or an expert offering your services like a business. If you change that mindset, you can be much more comfortable being objective about yourself. You can speak about yourself in a more professional and easy manner that doesn't come off like either arrogant or unprofessional or an I, me situation. So think about that frame of reference in all of your communications, especially when looking for a job. So another issue that we run into, it's funny, this happens more in the entrepreneur world or maybe unskilled entrepreneurs like myself, that we're always ready and prepared for the answer no, but we're not usually prepared for the answer yes. This is a big deal. It sounds simple, but it's a big deal. We practice all our lives to overcome objection. We have counter arguments. We have ways to reason when people come against us, and our automatic response is defend, defend, defend. But when you get over that hump, and it could happen quickly, and somebody says, yes, let's go, you would be shocked at how many times people are caught off guard by, oh my God, I don't know if I want this. I don't know if this is the right thing for me. So another filter you should be using is, what is my yes? So any individual job that you can get to the point of an offer where it looks like they're going to tell me come to work for them, I need to have at least about a 90% definite answer of, is this a yes for me? What are the factors that I'm going to go down and go, that's a yes, 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 I'm in. This happens most quickly when people get multiple offers. I know a lot of you that are looking for jobs would love that scenario. This would be a great problem to have, is 2 or 3 people offering you a job at the same time. But what I've always done is taken someone when they're deciding between 2 jobs, and I've asked them to be very objective and set aside one of the jobs, consider just the one scenario directly, and say to themselves, is this a yes? As is, am I accepting this job regardless of anything else that's going on in the world, any other potential jobs, any other offer, even if it's on the table? Is this a yes? When you have that defined for yourself, and you know exactly what your target is, this helps in some of the stuff I was just talking about earlier. What is it you're looking for? What are the parameters where you can be of best service and best value to an employer? Being secure, knowing what your financial picture looks like so that you can accept a job based on the opportunity. Is this a yes for you? Make sure you know what that is. That's even important in very early phases, even before an offer. Because if an agent is very quickly saying, hey, maybe you'd consider this position. It's over in Eastern Oklahoma, and it's for an older family, less formal than you were talking about. You should already know, hey, this was in my wiggle room. This is still in my bubble of yes. So, of course, I would love to pursue that. There are going to be nuances. There are going to be different factors that you need to consider. Money is a huge one. Job duties, hours, all of the places, all of the elements of the job, you're going to need to consider if something's way off in one area. But in general, you should know that bubble. You should be ready to roll forward with someone. You should be very clear on what's a yes for you. Best case scenario for using an agency. If you are anywhere near where an agency is located, they need to become your best friend. If you can get a local meeting, you need to meet with someone in person. That's the most complete whole presentation that you can offer as a candidate. If you can get in the door somewhere, develop a relationship. In New York and Los Angeles, you should probably have 10 of those. Very, very competitive markets. That's where the jobs are. That's where the agencies are. Become a personal friend to the agency. And what that means is following everything that we've been talking about. Follow their instructions, politely request meetings, jump through all their hoops. Just be ready with how they can help you, be specific about how they can help you, and if you can meet in person, that's the home run. Not everybody can do that. Next, what's happening on our side of the desk? All right, first things first, you need to be very, very clear that when you're speaking to an agent, we only have one core function. And that function is not to help you get a job. I know that sounds weird, and I know that would be the love fest, is like, hey, here I am. I'm candidate A, B, or C. Can you help me get a job? The answer is no. That is not our job. Our job is very simple. We are paid by clients to find them someone that matches their service request. I'm going to repeat that. We are paid by clients to find someone that matches their service request. Now, that's the black and white, okay? The gray area is that, of course, we want to help you get a job. Of course, we want to help a client redefine their service offering for the best long-term success. So we'll help with resumes, we'll help with job descriptions, we'll help with all the HR setup so that we can position this job for long-term success. But don't forget, it's not our job to get you a job. With that in mind, all of the other things that you've been building along this presentation about how you can be the best candidate, knowing what you want, getting to a yes, knowing what your yes is, all of those factor into how can you present yourself as the match for our client service needs. And the other piece that will let you off the hook a bit, don't overthink this. There just are not a ton of jobs. It is so much luck and timing when you are looking for a job that it almost makes any speaking, teaching, writing about this irrelevant, because you could literally call someone, they have the job order on their desk, and you're around the corner and they go, holy cow, the stars have aligned here, like you're in. So we don't know, okay? Don't ask us repeatedly, are you sure you don't have anything? Are you sure you wouldn't put me forward for something? Like we know what the client's asking for. If it's not you, it's not you, okay? Don't beat it to death. We don't make up the jobs. We don't manufacture positions. So you can't call and say, here I am, here's what I'm looking for. If I don't have it, I can't offer you nothing. I can't offer you something that doesn't exist. So think about that before you call. Take our word for it. Take our answers. We might not tell you the whole truth, but nobody's really trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Nobody's wanting to lie to you and say, oh yeah, maybe it's because you have brown hair, and they're looking for a blonde. That could be a real reason. I mean, let's be honest. Private employers don't necessarily follow all the rules. They like what they like, and we don't necessarily have control over that. But the bottom line, we can't create a job. If you're a fit, I promise you, we are going to be best friends. Like, we're going to dig so deep on this, because although I don't take myself very seriously, I take the work very seriously. I recognize that, again, what you're doing in your career choice and your next job hunt has influence over your personal life for years to come. Same with the employer. So I do take it very, very seriously. We're going to dig deep. We're going to get very, very professional. But trust kind of what we're saying, even if it's, even if it seems flippant, like, well, they like somebody that has two left shoes instead of one left, one right. Weird things happen. So just kind of roll with it. Again, it's about, did you have a bad experience? Are you feeling frustrated? Well, just maintain your professionalism. You might even be right. It might just not be your day. Don't worry about it. You have control over your own performance. Carry on. Other behind the scenes issues. This one is kind of tough love. If you're a great candidate, it's unlikely you will ever have an issue with any agency, because they're going to go, holy cow, we recognize like you're the goods here. And if we had a position, we'd place you like in a second. So that's the ideal scenario. Anything coming down from that, you can think a little bit deeper about all the other stuff we're talking about. Am I lining myself up as close to as an ideal candidate as I can. What is it about me that's great, that I'm really pushing forward? What is my brand like? What is my interaction like with these agencies? Why or why not do they love talking to me when I call? And maybe you can get some feedback. Most of the times you won't get feedback. But trust me, if you're at the top of your game, you know it. My favorite people to deal with call and teach me stuff. I don't want to have to give this information to anybody. Like this is the type of thing that I've learned over the years from dealing with people who are the best of the best. You know, they'll tell me about stories with employers. They'll tell me about how they handled themselves in an interview situation, or how they made the right move or said the right thing to get that amazing job. That's who you want to be. All of the things we've been layering, that builds you into this candidate. The other thing is we can't manufacture your experience. So if you don't have the experience that someone's looking for, there's really nothing we can do. You know, again, not just we're not here to get you a job. We're not here to give you a chance. That's not the transaction on this side. You might find a job where somebody takes a chance on you. An agency can't stand behind that. So if it's something new to you and, you maybe learn on the job, no, we don't have that. There are rumors of some internship programs coming up in our business. That's great. That's the learning curve. There are points of entry completely at random in our business. But I think I'm confident speaking to all of you as professionals, like if you're not an experienced match for a job, there's really nothing we can do to overcome that. So keep that in mind. Again, kind of take our word for it. Not everybody's super ethical at 100%, but there's no real gain in deceiving you or trying to get one over on you. You know, we're not collecting money from you, so there's nothing to sell you. Just roll with it. Another item about the professional conduct. We talk a lot. So I could probably say there's over 100 agencies doing what we do in the United States. A good handful of us that you've seen around and networking in groups like DEMA, we speak about you. There's no two ways about it. You know, if we have a bad experience, we speak about you more. Don't ever be the bad experience that we're chatting about. You know, enough said about that. You get it. Resumes. I'm going to skip this because we're running out of time. Donna Shannon is very, very good with resumes. Look at her presentation from last week if you weren't on the call. She has a really good formula that we use. I'll give you my 30-second version. I like a 3-step resume. Number 1, we've already discussed. Tell me exactly what you're looking for. Don't be too vague. Don't put in too much flexibility, but make a direct statement. I'm a private chef looking for a full-time assignment in the New York metropolitan area with a great family, hopefully with children. That's a perfect objective statement. I know what you're looking for. Now I know how I can help you. Just don't do the opposite of that. Second piece, what skills do you have to provide value in this role? That's what we've been talking about the whole time. You know, who are you as a professional that I'm going to pay for your services in this position? List your skills, list your experience, tell about yourself. The format is almost irrelevant, but this is part 2. What are you selling me? What do you provide in service in this job? Third piece, super easy. Show me the evidence. Where have you done this successfully? I want proof that you are who you just said in the job you told me you're looking for. That is your resume in total. Nothing should vary from that. Everything you put on a resume from this day forward should support those 3 things. What is it you're looking for specifically? What services and skills do you provide in that role? And show me the proof. what things have you done and how can I verify you are awesome? That's resume in a nutshell. But for the real deal, go to Donna, because there's so many nuances depending on what kind of background you've had, what kind of experience you're representing. Obviously, I'm not doing it justice, but I use that filter. That's all I need to know when I scan a resume. Okay, I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm looking at my notes. I obviously have enough to put in a book. I gave you a book, so you can dig in as much as you like after this. But a couple of warnings, couple of just quick notes in the interview process. Already touched on it, but this is hugely important. Please, 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 if anything going forward in any interview you have for the rest of your life, think about this before you go there. Don't make your problems the client's problems. Any hint of that, you are probably out, regardless of how good you are. Here's why. Perfect example is relocation. People from outside of major cities want to relocate to a Los Angeles or a New York. There's no discrimination about where you're from, where you're living, whether or not you can relocate yourself. The simple answer is, and this is direct from clients, they are uncomfortable taking on the knowledge and the responsibility and the feeling that they are making you bend to their needs. So they don't want to be the one that's responsible for your personal situation going bad. What do you do about this? You make your personal situation super simple, super fluid, super secure. Talked about this earlier. Your lifestyle choices should be so simple if you're a person who's going to relocate for a job, especially in private service, that they don't have to think twice that, oh, this could blow up, and then I personally, as the employer, have put you out, or I have created the upset in your life. This is the behind the scenes thinking. This is the client view. So anytime you reinforce that statement that that your problem is their problem, you're going upside down. So, oh, I don't have a car. You got to get me a car. Oh, no, I don't. You're out. Okay, this happens, right? Use the filter that we talked about earlier. How can I make my personal circumstances a benefit to sell to the employer? Hey, I'm traveling really light. I actually didn't need to own a car of my own. When I relocate for employment to this position, it seems like I will need a vehicle. I'm going to take care of a personal vehicle for myself, no problem. My credit's great. I'm going to go lease something for $150 a month on sale, drive around a little putt-putt for myself. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to have a work vehicle provided for me and other staff for work-related items? Does that make sense? Do you have that in place? Totally different ballgame. You've now taken the approach of, I'm a service professional. I'm an expert at this. I know the best scenarios dealing with a vehicle for this type of employment. And in my personal circumstance, a negative, I don't have my own car yet, turned into a positive. Don't worry about my personal vehicle. I'll get one in a minute when I get there. But the professional side is, hey, I'm giving you guidance on what would be the best way to incorporate a vehicle for employment use. I'm speaking in an ideal term. Hopefully they're very receptive to that. It all goes well. But even if it still goes south, you controlled the professional presentation of that idea. Turn something that could have been seen as a weakness or an imposition into something that was a positive employment-related suggestion. That's the filter to approach any needs in a job that could be your problem. Don't make it their problem. Another item in interviews, saying no is totally okay. You gotta know that even if somebody gets initially upset that you don't accept a job, the positive outcome of you going through the entire process, jumping through all the hoops, impressing the heck out of an employer to the point that they want to hire you in the job, even if the terms don't work out and you decide this one's not a yes, this one's a no, I'm going to be firm about it, I'm not taking this job. Thank you everyone for your time. You have control over being the best candidate, being professional, and impressing everyone. That ultimately is a positive on both sides. I've had some employers get upset that people didn't take jobs, but more importantly, I've had people so impressed that they weren't able to hire the best candidate I put forward that they wanted to work with me forever because they knew who I was bringing to the table. And I had nothing but thanks for the person who went through the interview and said, I'm sorry, it's not the right fit. Better to know that now than 6 months down the road. And the employer saying, what happened? I had the greatest thing in the world and they're splitting. So don't be afraid to say no. Again, if someone reacts to that negatively, that's their problem. As long as you're professional, kind, courteous, and you came as an expert saying, I'm sorry, this isn't for me. It's not the right value to the employer to put me in this role. Always, again, as a benefit to the employer, always framed that way. Preparation for interviews. Make sure you Google 2 very simple things. Again, this is a learning issue. If you don't prepare for an interview, I don't know what to tell you. That's just like basic professional conduct. Like, be prepared for stuff. Google top 10 interview mistakes. Within an interview, you're going to get basic questions that are asked on almost every interview in the world. You're going to see them, or at least some form of it. If you haven't reviewed that, I guarantee you're making at least 1, probably 5 mistakes out of that 10. Great answers to difficult interview questions is another idea. Anything that you can search, there's a billion different areas where you can find great advice. You know how the freaking internet works. Get on, learn what you need to learn, be prepared, practice, do everything that you can. You are a professional service provider, but more importantly, you are a performer. If you haven't set up that CD that's going to run your show, if you don't have that backing track, if you don't have the format and the foundation of who you are going into something completely prepared, you're messing up. Why on earth would you compromise, a couple of months of effort for the sake of a great circumstance in employment for the next 5 to 10 years plus? Just consider yourself an evolving, living, learning machine for the sake of your future employer. And that's it. That's all I think we have time for. I think we've run over, but I'll stay as long as anybody wants to fire away some questions. So here I am.
I have one, David, for you.
Yes, please.
I looked on your website and I saw that you have a few positions open. Can I assume that it's a practice for agencies to list their openings, their job openings, but that you're also sort of behind the scenes placing a lot of people in different positions that may not make it to a website listing, or on LinkedIn or on various website hosts?
That is a correct assumption. There are jobs that never get posted. There are jobs that get posted that never get placed. It's kind of a yes to all of the above answer. For me, I almost never will post a job that I'm working on with someone else, because I may just be on the sideline saying, hey, I'm not going to work 100% on this, but as a favor, if I think of anyone, if I have somebody else to throw in the mix that comes up, I'll work with partners all across the country in that way. And that might be a typical background job for me. Other agencies just, it's almost impossible to post everything. And like that scenario I talked about earlier, if you happen to just, align the stars and the job order comes in and you're signed on with a client, and the next phone call is Natalie, and she's the perfect female butler candidate that this person's been waiting for, it's just done. It's one and done. There have been 1 and 2 day placements. Very rare these days, but that's just the extreme on the one side versus something that gets posted and takes a while to place.
Thank you.
David, there's been several questions that have come up the screen, so I'll read a few of them. Someone asked, is having a mentor through this process something that's suggested or advised or ever done?
Let's just slip that right back into the beginning of the talk. Career development, community, that's what DEMA's all about. Mentorship would be completely amazing. I don't know who that would be. I don't know who would be able to volunteer themselves in that capacity, but absolutely. A mentor actually might be better to have them outside of our industry. But what if you could talk to a high-level hospitality professional or someone in a service corporate career that is just phenomenal, that can take a look at what you're doing and have a very, very objective professional view for you? Absolutely. If you find a list of mentors, I want one.
Great. How about someone said, are they still really using Craigslist?
The proverbial they. Great question. Yes, they, meaning everyone, might still be putting ads on Craigslist. We do in certain occasions. Usually it's just to make sure there's not somebody local in a market that you've missed. It could be a unique kind of position that doesn't fit an exact category. And you never know, because it's pretty easy to throw an ad up there, excuse me, and get a bunch of responses. We can weed through pretty quickly. You get anonymous resumes. Like my friend Elizabeth said, if she put instructions in one of those Craigslist ads, she can wipe right through 100 candidates in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out there. I mean, take every possible tool, every possible opportunity as if it is gold.
Someone else mentioned that they run across a lot of very unspecific job posts. There's
Yep.
generic, you have no idea what you're applying for.
Maybe that's a no for you.
Oh, okay.
Simple answer. That's your discretion. Generic job posts. Some of the generic job posts that we've allowed on estate jobs, they're pretty clearly stated, like, hey, we're an agency in New York looking for more housekeepers for New York jobs. Yeah, that's pretty generic. Do you want to submit to that? I would. Again, what am I going to think if I'm spending a few months making moves for the next 5 to 10 years of my life based on my work right now? I'm going to try everything. I'm going to follow every rabbit hole.
That's what I've been doing. Here's a question. Do agencies really need all of my personal demographics on that initial application, like my social security number, the make, model, and plate on my car? Do they really need that much information, or is it I'm following directions kind of thing?
Yes is the answer to all of the above. And no. The experience will vary. When I first got into the business, we were using forms and applications that applied to nannies. And the data for something like, give me your license plate, and what model and make of car you have was very important. And it was because you need to go drive to Malibu and back every day from the valley. If you have a 1938 Ford that has a crank start, you're not really ready for this job. You know, you don't have the transportation available. So yeah, it was totally relevant. That's obviously a silly example. The background information, that's a tough one, because if I actually am representing you and I've put you out on a job, I'm hanging all the risk on myself. And if I don't know for a fact that I have your valid background information and that you're signing a release that I can run those checks when I'm ready, I'm at risk. So yeah, I'd give it to people that are in business a long time, that are reputable, that you can trust. You're welcome to ask them, when do you do background checks? What are you doing with this information? Is it stored securely? Again, don't ever assume that people have the time to try and screw you. That if they're in business for a purpose, they're not coming up with schemes to get your information for something nefarious. That would be my assumption on the positive side. Have I lost you, Natalie?
I'm having technical difficulties
Oh,
now.
there you are.
I'm having technical difficulties now.
Oh, no worries. I thought you were going to have one of your cool backgrounds. I thought you'd like put yourself on the beach.
That's another technical difficulty. I was. I've got the green screen, but no, it won't let me pick a background. I was going to have a big heart for Valentine's Day.
That would have been
Oh, well.
fun.
It would have been. So I didn't get to hear your answer, but I'll pick it up on the video later. How do you handle a great reference that can't be verified? Like the employer gave a phenomenal letter, and like they just don't give they don't give references, or they don't take calls anymore.
Yeah, if you have 3 others, I don't care.
Okay.
That's the short answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a particular problem if you don't have other references.
Mm-hmm.
What's a nuance of that? If that's a 12-year, 15-year job, that's a reference in itself. Can we go around that? Can we verify your employment? Can you talk to an accountant? Can you talk to somebody that says, yeah, that was her position. She was there from 1910 to 1990.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a reference.
Okay.
Who is it? Is it Ed McMahon calling?
I don't know. I goofed. I forgot to put it on mute.
Hey, David, at this point, if anyone else has any questions, can we just go ahead and open it up? And if people have a question, if you guys can one at a time, if you want to unmute yourself real quickly, you can go ahead and ask David a question if you want.
All right, I'm going full screen. I'm going to go to the Brady Bunch view. I'll look for a hand.
Joan, you had a great question. Do you want to go ahead and ask David, please? Oh,
Sure. Okay, sure. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What do I have to do? I'm on mute still?
Nope,
Yeah,
you're
you're
good.
good. I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you.
You're good.
So my big question was, I actually was speaking to a recruiter who sort of reprimanded me because I did not have written references from my employer. One who I've worked for like 12 years, another for more than a year, a lot of other things. And basically I was told, you better have those for the future. Versus everybody I've ever worked for is happy to have the discussion. They just don't want to put it in writing.
Well, then the agency's being real lazy.
Okay, well that's
what's the ideal? The ideal is you have a wonderful book written about you by your last employer. And it's the Jim Hensley is Like a God to Me by Mr. and Mrs. Employer.
the Schmitz love me.
Nobody has that, but that's a home run, right? Then I don't have to do a damn thing. I don't have to go, okay, well, let's figure out when I can check that reference because I don't have anything written to show the client yet. So I'm going to have to call, I'm going to have to do the interview. I'm going to have to write a summary. I'm going to have to put that in the package, send it over to the client who's asking for references. If you have a letter, it's beautiful. I mean, I put together documents that try to knock people's socks off from the beginning, and a visual is great. You know, if they can read that somebody says you're amazing and this is what you did for sure, it's so wonderful. If you don't have it, ain't nothing I can do about it. So I wouldn't be too worried.
Okay, I'm not.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Come on, somebody give me something juicy.
Roger?
Roger, let's
Hand
go,
up.
Roger.
Hey, David, thank you for the great information and your time today. We've gone over branding ourselves and that type of thing, but what are some of the other things that we as private service professionals do that shoot ourselves in the foot as far as dealing with the agency and or dealing with principals when we are fortunate enough to get that interview? What are some of the things that we're doing that, you know, we may not realize that we're shooting ourselves in the foot?
It's a really long list, and I'm not saying you're all doing it. I would just say if I spent some time making a don't column, you know, anything that is the opposite of what I have been talking about. I'm not representing myself as an expert. I'm unsure of myself. I'm unclear on what I'm looking for, but even more so with an employer, I'm unclear on how my skills are adding value and fulfilling the service needs you've asked for. You don't want to smell. You don't want to be offensive in any way, shape, or form. Ladies, I hate to say it, don't be too pretty. Be as neutral and professional as you can. Anything, again, that moves you in one direction or another outside of the zone that an employer is specifically asking for is bad. So they want to like you. They want to be around you. They want to spend time with you. All of these things, as a person and as a communicator and as a professional, line those up, give it your best shot, and ask somebody before you go on an interview. Hey, do you see anything that's like, you know, distracting, off-putting? Is this hairstyle okay? Roger, that's not a problem, sorry. You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, we can make fun of ourselves. We can be behind the stage performers. You know, I don't know if any of you have watched the HBO show called Crashing. Anyone show of hands? No? Well, I'm recommending it. It's the most hilarious, awkward presentation of a stand-up comic who's trying to break into the business in New York, but he's kind of this clueless Midwestern, you know, mama's boy. And it's comedian Pete Holmes playing himself as beautifully and awkwardly as you can imagine on screen. I mean, this to me is like the best performance I've ever seen. Why I say that is because the behind the scenes of somebody trying to be their best at a performance is almost nothing that you would think. Like, you're making fun of yourself, you're working your ass off, you're doing terrible, hard things behind the scenes. And then when you're on stage, you're so practiced, so rehearsed, so composed, so professional that what seems like your brilliance or your on the spot wisdom and wit, they've actually done that line 1,000 times and tuned it to the specific audience. It's really brilliant. Anytime you get behind the scenes of a performer, you'll see that same thing.
Hey,
David, this is Melinda. I have a question, if you please.
Melinda, please.
Hi. Not that I look like Raquel Welch, but could you please explain a little bit about the don't be too pretty? I'm assuming that you definitely never want to overstep, right? You don't want to be prettier than the bride, which is the wife. But can you get into that a little bit?
You kind of answered the question yourself. What you want to do is be a non-presence with your looks, with your charm. You want to be a presence with your expertise and your professionalism. Use that as a filter. So if if you have amazing, beautiful, curly, long hair, maybe it's going to be pulled back, to be more neutral.
Okay.
If you look amazing in glamour shots photos with all of your makeup, maybe you don't wear your glamour shots makeup to the interview. Perfumes that are strong, anything that is a sexual attraction device is not appropriate for a professional interview. I don't care if you're with a man, with a woman, with, an android. You have control over your professional appearance. You don't want to affect someone in any one way dramatically. So just go as neutral as you can, but you also have to feel comfortable. So if you are comfortable in makeup and looking good, look good, but maybe ask someone, hey, would this be distracting? Would this be off-putting to a 60-year-old wife of the person I'm going to work for?
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much.
And again, make sure that you're all knowing that this is my opinion. All of these ideas are my opinion. Yes, it's taken from a lot of experience directly and through professionals like you and through other agencies that I interact with all the time. But on the side of we don't take ourselves too seriously, this is all made up. Like from the beginning of time, two people were walking around naked on the earth and had an interaction. And at one point, one gave the other some food to eat, and that was the first act of service. But everyone is equal. We're all just people. We're all in our roles. Keep it as an act. One of the lines I like to say is that our real job as service professionals in any field is to support the delusion of the client receiving service. So whatever they think they deserve, want, whatever world they've crafted in which you're delivering them pleasures, they made it up. There's no rule. You don't have to do this. So your goal is accept and understand whatever that delusion is and be the performer, be the trained performer that delivers it seamlessly so that you've added joy, you've added pleasure to that interaction.
Well, I think that sounds like a good place to wrap up today's conversation with you, David. I appreciate you taking the time for our virtual chapter meeting. I hope that everyone has got an opportunity to enjoy David sharing his time and insight into the world of domestic placement agencies. This meeting platform is new to us, so we do welcome your constructive feedback. Please respond through a post-meeting survey that will be provided. And through the virtual chapter tab on the DEMA website, members can submit questions regarding how you can become more involved with DEMA and the private service industry. You can submit suggestions for future guests and topics you'd like us to discuss. Find a link to this meeting to view when it is more appropriate for your schedule if you want to go back and rewatch it. We encourage you to do that as well. We're very excited to announce that we will be meeting again next week on Tuesday, February 20th. We will be joined by Ms. Lexi Wolf, who specializes in employment law, where we will discuss how the law affects the hiring process in private service. Speaking of guests and hot topics, the virtual chapter is looking for volunteers and help in this area. If you're interested in joining our virtual team, we would highly encourage you to reach out to Natalie, who is our virtual chapter president, and her email is virtua, virtua, @gmail.com.
It's virtual.
And be sure to reserve your spot for next week when we will have It is virtual. Okay, just the misspelling. All right.
I was just a typo.
Like I said, this is new for us, so we're working on it. It's virtual@gmail.com. And be sure to reserve your spot for next week when Lexi will be here to talk with us. In the meantime, you can check out DEMA's new social network and connect with any of the friends that you met here today on the meeting. At this point, we'll go ahead and conclude the recording and open it up for anyone who wants to stick around and just have a little bit of meeting and networking. We encourage you guys to do that here over the next, we'll go probably about the next 10 minutes or so. Thank you very much once again, David. We appreciate it as always, and all of the participants. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, everybody, for being on the call. This is cool. I feel like we're, real time with Bill Maher, now going to overtime 2.0. So fire away if you have some other things that you don't want recorded.